Good day, everyone. Today we'll be discussing Lewis antibodies. Lewis antibodies are generally IgM in nature, which means they are naturally occurring and usually not clinically significant. Since IgM antibodies do not cross the placenta, they rarely cause serious transfusion reactions or hemolytic disease of the fetus and newborn. Now, let's talk about their reaction temperature. Lewis antibodies typically react best at room temperature or below. However, some may show weak reactivity at body temperature, but they rarely cause hemolysis in vivo. One of the most important points about Lewis antibodies is that they are not implicated in HDFN. But why? Take note guys, there are three key reasons for this. First, the nature of the antibody. Since Lewis antibodies are mostly IgM, they do not cross the placenta to affect the fetus. Unlike your IgG antibodies that are capable of crossing the placenta, your IgM are not capable. However, tatandaan natin the both IgM and IgG are capable of fixing the complement. However, only the IgG antibody is capable of crossing the placenta. Next factor to consider is your antigen development. Lewis antigens are not well developed at birth. This means that even if the mother has Lewis antibodies, they have no significant target on the fetal red blood cells. And last factor to consider is your antigen expression. Lewis antigens are not expressed on cord RBCs and tend to be diminished on the mother's RBCs during pregnancy due to changes in plasma liquid composition. This further reduces any risk to the fetus. And in summary, Lewis antibody are mostly IgM. They react best at what temperature? At room temperature, and they do not cause HDFN. While they may cause some difficulties in cross-matching due to in vitro reactions, they are generally not a cause for concern in transfusion medicine. Next, let's focus on anti-LEA, the most common Lewis antibody. One important characteristic of anti-LEA is that it is easily neutralized by plasma. This means that in a patient sample, naturally occurring Lewis substances present in the plasma can absorb the antibody, which now reduce its reactivity in testing. Now, while Lewis antibodies are generally not clinically significant, anti-LEA has the ability to bind complement. In rare cases, if anti-LEA reacts at 37 degrees Celsius or in body temperature, it can cause hemolytic transfusion reactions. However, this is uncommon because Lewis antibodies are primarily IgM in nature and they do not usually react strongly at body temperature. Another key point is that anti-LEA, like other Lewis antibodies, they do not cause hemolytic disease of the fetus and newborn. This is because the antibodies are IgM and do not cross the placenta. Lewis antigens are not well developed at birth and are not expressed on fetal red blood cells. And when performing laboratory tests, you'll notice that most Lewis antibodies agglutinate saline suspended RBCs. However, these agglutinates are often fragile and can easily disperse, which means we need to be careful when interpreting the results. Another technical point to remember is that if the cell button is not gently resuspended after centrifugation, the reaction may be misinterpreted. Lewis antibodies can bind complement, and if fresh serum is used, anti-LEA may cause in vitro hemolysis of incompatible RBCs. And this hemolysis is more frequently observed with enzyme-treated RBCs than with untreated cells, meaning that enzyme enhancement techniques can sometimes exaggerate anti-LEA reactions. Now, let's move on to anti-LEB or anti-LEB, which is not as common or as strong as anti-LEA. Anti-LEB is usually an IgM agglutinin and has the ability to bind complement. But like other Lewis antibodies, it is generally not considered clinically significant. It rarely causes transfusion reactions and does not cause HDFN for the same reasons we discussed earlier. Lewis antigens are not well developed at birth, and Lewis antibodies are typically in which nature of antibody They are IgM, which do not cross the placenta. Interestingly, anti-LEB is infrequently produced by individuals with a LE A positive and B negative phenotype. This means that some individuals who do not express the LEB antigen may develop this antibody, but it is not very common. Now, anti-LEB is classified into two categories based on how it reacts with different RBC types. First, your anti-LEBH. This reacts best when both the LEB and H antigens are present on the red blood cell. This means that group O and A2 cells, which naturally have high amounts of H antigen, will show stronger reactions with anti-LEBH. This antibody is considered a response to a compound antigen, meaning it requires both LEB and H antigens to be present for optimal binding. Now, let's discuss your anti-LEBL or your LEBL. This antibody is broader in its reactivity. It recognizes any LEB antigen regardless of the ABO type. So unlike anti-LEBH, it does not depend on the presence of the H antigen, and it reacts with many LEB positive RBCs. Now let's discuss Lewis phenotypes. From the first table, saan yung cursor ko? Wait lang po. Dito, focus muna tayo dito. We can see that Lewis phenotypes are determined by reactions with anti-LEA and anti-LEB antibodies. Tignan niyo po tong table. Anti-LEA and si anti-LEB natin. Kapag LE A positive and B negative, dito po, this phenotype reacts with anti-LEA but not with anti-LEB, and it occurs in 22% of whites and 23% of blacks. Next phenotype, this one. This phenotype reacts with anti-LEB but not with anti-LEA, making it the most common phenotype. It is found in 72% of whites and 55% of blacks. Next, yung LE-A-neg, B-neg naman natin. This phenotype does not react with either anti-LEA or anti-LEB and is more common in blacks, 22%, than in whites with 6%. Lastly, yung LE-A positive, B positive natin. This phenotype is very rare in both populations. Now, what determines these phenotypes? Let's discuss the genetic basis of the Lewis system. Looking at the second table, ito po yung tinutukoy natin. We see that Lewis genes, your capital LE and small le, and the secretor genes, yung SE, capital SE and small se, play a crucial role in determining Lewis antigen expression. Diba last time sa klase natin, na-discuss natin sino yung functional and non-functional sa genes na ito. Individuals who inherit the LE and SE genes, capital L and capital S po to guys, will produce both LEA and LEB in secretions. But LEB is preferentially expressed on red blood cells, resulting in a LE A negative and B plus phenotype. Those with the LE gene but lacking the SE gene will only produce LEA, leading to the LE A positive and B negative phenotype. Huwag malilito po doon, guys. Kapag both LE and SE gene, ang phenotype po na pwede nating ma-produce po doon is your ano po, guys? Kapag both LE and SE gene po natin ang na-produce, anong antigen ang kanilang mai-inherit? They could inherit both your LEA or LEB antigen. You could inherit your LEB antigen. Pag present lang naman po si LE gene po natin, you could have your LEA antigen. It says here the presence of the H gene also plays a role in the formation of LEB as it contributes to the availability of H antigen which is needed to form the LEB structure. Now, the prevalence of Lewis phenotypes in different populations. The last table, ito yung tinutukoy po natin, reaffirms the frequency of Lewis phenotypes in adults. We can clearly see that the LEA negative and B plus phenotype is the most common in both whites and blacks, followed by your LEA positive, B negative. The LEA negative and B negative phenotype, on the other hand, is more common in blacks than whites, likely due to the genetic differences in secretor and Lewis gene distribution. The LEA positive and B positive phenotype remains a rare occurrence in both groups. Burahin lang natin to. Now, let's talk about the Lewis phenotypes and how they develop over time. Take note guys, may secretor and non-secretor po tayong tinutukoy dito. In the white population, about 78 to 80% are secretors, meaning they have the SE gene allowing them to secrete soluble forms of ABO antigens in body fluids. The remaining 20% on the other hand are non-secretors, meaning they do not secrete these substances. Now, let's focus on the individuals with the LEA negative and B negative phenotype. Those who do not express Lewis antigens on their RBCs are termed as LEA negative and B negative. But interestingly, within this group, 80% are considered as secretors and 20% are non-secretors. So even though their RBCs lack Lewis antigens, many still produce soluble forms of these antigens in their secretions. And how does the LEA negative and B positive phenotype arise? For an individual to have the LEA or the LEA negative and B positive phenotype, they must inherit three key genes. The first one is your LE gene, and this is responsible for producing Lewis antigens. The SE gene, which allows for the conversion of LEA to LEB in secretions. Now, other factor to consider is your H gene, which is necessary for LEB formation. Now, let us discuss the Lewis antigen development in newborns. Another unique feature of the Lewis system is that it is not fully developed at birth. Lewis glycolipids are not detectable in plasma until about 10 days after birth. This is why cord blood and newborn RBCs always test as LEA negative and B negative since they lack both Lewis antigens at birth. However, in children who inherit both LE and SE genes, the Lewis antigen expression gradually transforms. At birth, they could have the LEA negative and B negative phenotype, and after 10 days, they could have the LEA positive and B negative, and this is considered as the temporary phase. And as they grow, they could have your LE, A positive and B positive, which is considered as the intermediate phase. And by around 6 years old, they develop their true Lewis phenotype. Tatandaan, recall question po to. Which of the following is considered as the true Lewis phenotype? And take note, the true Lewis phenotype is your LEA negative and B positive. Take note of the formation po from yung LEA negative, B negative. Pupunta po siya sa LEA positive and B negative, and habang tumatanda yung tao or yung bata, magiging LEA positive and B positive, and kapag 6 years old na sila, magiging LEA negative and B positive na sila. Now, for children who inherit LE and SS genes or small SESE genes or non-secretors, their development is slightly different. At birth, LEA neg, B negative po yung phenotype, and after 10 days, magiging LEA positive and B negative. However, this LEA positive and B negative phenotype remains throughout life because they lack the SE gene. preventing yung LEB expression natin. 'Di ba sabi natin kanina, si LE gene responsible for your LEA gene or the inheritance of the LEA antigen. However, kapag wala kang SE gene, hindi mamomodify si LEA into LEB. Now, the loss of Lewis antigens in disease states, another fascinating aspect of Lewis antigens is that they can be lost in certain medical conditions. For example, patients with cancer, alcoholic cirrhosis, and viral and parasitic infections may temporarily lose their expression of LEA and LEB on their RBCs, leading to a transient LEA negative or B negative phenotype. And this is an important observation in transfusion medicine. Now, let's move on to the other blood group system na included po sa group quiz ninyo sa Friday. Guys, group quiz na po to, pamigay na po. Lahat mag-review para mataas po ang makuha nyo. For the historical background, the P blood group was first introduced in 1927 by Landsteiner and Levine. In their attempt to discover new blood group antigens, they injected rabbits with human red blood cells, and this led to the production of the antibody called anti-P, which helped classify human RBCs into two groups. The first group is your P positive and the other one is P negative. However, over time, the classification of the P blood group has evolved, and under current ISBT classification, the current ISBT redefined the P blood group system. Now, P1 and PK antigens are now assigned to the P1 PK blood group system or your ISBT 003. The P antigen has been moved to a separate system called the globocyte blood group system or your ISBT 028, and it has a symbol of GLOB, G-L-O-B. Additionally, yung LOC or LKE and PX2 antigens are now categorized under the globocyte collection with the ISBT number 029 and the symbol is GLOB din lang. Genetics of the P1PK gene. The P1PK gene is located on chromosome 22q11.2 dot, and the P gene is found on chromosome 3q26.1 dot. Understanding these genetic locations is essential, especially in molecular biology and forensic investigations, where blood group genotyping is used for identity verification. Now let's dive into the biochemistry of the P1PK and globocyte blood group systems. Take note, these antigens, your PK, P, and P1, they are formed through a stepwise addition of sugars to a base molecule called your lactosylceramide. And how are these antigens synthesized? First, yung PK antigen formation ang i-discuss natin. The first step in this process is the formation of the PK antigen. This happens when an enzyme called galactosyltransferase 1 adds a galactose molecule to a lactosylceramide. Now, for the P antigen formation, once the PK antigen is formed, another enzyme, which is your N-acetyl galactosamine transferase 1, steps in. And this enzyme adds an N-acetyl galactosamine molecule to the terminal galactose of PK, now forming the P antigen. For your P1 antigen formation, the P1 antigen, on the other hand, is synthesized differently. Instead of modifying the PK, galactose is added directly to the paragloboside, a type 2 precursor substance. And for your paragloboside and H antigen relationship, the paragloboside also acts as the precursor for the H antigen. If fucose is added instead of galactose, it forms the H antigen, which is the foundation for ABO blood group system. For the next slide, we can see an illustration. Let's take a closer look at how the P1PK and globocyte blood group system antigens are formed. To understand this, we need to focus on a key molecule, and that would be your lactosylceramide. Ito po. Take note, si lactosylceramide natin acts as the starting point for two different pathways. For pathway 1, the formation of your P1 antigen and ABH antigens. And ito muna yung di-discuss natin. It says here, lactosylceramide is first converted into lactotriaosylceramide. And this then leads to the formation of paragloboside, which is a type 2 precursor. And at this stage, two possible transformation can occur. After the addition of galactose, it could provide your P1 antigen, and upon the addition of fucose, it could give it could give rise to your ABH antigen, which is the precursor for the ABO system. And under the pathway 2, formation of your PK and LKE antigens. Lactosylceramide can also be converted into PK antigen upon the addition of N-acetyl-galactosamine to PK. Further modifications result in the formation of your LKE. Wag malilito, we have key points to remember. The P1 antigen and ABH antigen share the same precursor, which is yung paragloboside po natin. And the P antigen is formed from the PK antigen through enzyme catalyze step. So bale parang si P antigen, precursor niya po si PK po natin. Si P, precursor niya si PK antigen. And the LKE antigen is a downstream product of the P antigen naman. And take note pala guys, the modifications rely on specific enzyme-driven sugar additions. Ulit natin, kapag galactose ang inad natin sa isang paragloboside, magkakaroon tayo ng P1 antigen. Kapag fucose naman, it gives rise to your ABH antigen. Bura-burahin lang po natin. Now, let us discuss the P and PK antigens. Wait lang po. Take note guys, yung P and PK antigens natin, they are considered as high-frequency antigens. And what do we mean by that? Pag sinabi nating high-frequency antigens, they are found in most individuals. However, their role in routine blood testing is not as significant because antibodies against these antigens are quite rare. First, yung P1 antigen natin. The P1 antigen is poorly expressed at birth and takes up to 7 years to fully develop on RBCs. And its presence can rapidly deteriorate during RBC storage, leading to false negative reactions in antigen typing. Take note, the P1 substance has been identified in first, hydatid cyst fluid. Take note, si hydatid cyst fluid natin, it is linked to your Echinococcus infection. Another one, the earthworm species, yung tinatawag nating Lumbricoides terrestris, and the other one, the parasite Ascaris-suum. And the P1-like antigens have also been detected in pigeon droppings, turtle dove droppings, and the egg whites of turtle doves. It has been noted the blacks tend to have a stronger expression of P1 antigen than whites. For the PK antigen, the PK antigen has been found to act as a marker of apoptosis. When we say apoptosis, it is considered as a programmed cell death, particularly in germinal center of B cells. And it has been associated with certain cancers. It says here, yung first natin, yung Burkitt lymphoma, and another one is your lymphoblastic leukemia. The PK antigen is present in most red cells except in the P phenotype individuals who lack P, P1, and PK antigens altogether. Earlier, I mentioned that the PK antigen is linked in two different cancer types. Now, let us discuss the correlation between PK antigen, Burkitt lymphoma, and lymphoblastic leukemia. Take note, guys, that the PK antigen, which is also known as your GB3 or globotriaosylceramide, plays a significant role in cellular apoptosis or programmed cell death, tumor biology, and disease progression. While it is commonly associated with red blood cells, its presence on other other cell types, particularly sa B cells natin, has been linked to certain malignancies like first yung Burkitt lymphoma natin and lymphoblastic leukemia. Now, let's discuss the association between the PK antigen and Burkitt lymphoma. It says here, Burkitt lymphoma is an aggressive B-cell non-Hodgkin lymphoma that originates from germinal center B cells, the same cells where your PK antigen is naturally expressed. And how does your PK antigen contribute to Burkitt lymphoma? First, there would possible na may overexpression po tayo ng PK antigen in B cells. Take note that the PK antigen has been found in high amounts on the surface of Burkitt lymphoma cells, which suggests it may play a role in the disease pathophysiology. It can function as a binding site for certain toxins, including yung Shiga-like toxins natin, which may trigger apoptosis or promote oncogenic signaling. Also, possible reason kapag may apoptosis, dysregulation. Now, germinal center in B cells undergo apoptosis if they fail to undergo affinity maturation. But in Burkitt lymphoma, this mechanism is disrupted. Your PK antigen is linked to apoptosis, and its abnormal regulation may contribute to uncontrolled proliferation of malignant B cells. Some studies suggest that abnormal PK antigen expression could interfere with cell death pathways, leading to accumulation of transformed B cells. Now, for your PK antigen and acute lymphoblastic leukemia association. Sorry guys, antok na ako kasi ni-record ko po ulit ito. Bakit kasi hindi nag-render kagabi? So tuloy natin. Your acute lymphoblastic leukemia is a malignant disorder of lymphoid progenitor cells affecting B or T lymphocytes. Their role of PK antigen in ALL is still being studied, but current findings suggest it influences leukemic cell survival and disease progression. And how does PK antigen affect your ALL? First, yung marker of cell maturation and differentiation natin. Take note that the PK antigen is highly expressed in immature B cells in the germinal center and the same stage affected in lymphoblastic leukemia. It says here that the leukemic B cells that retain PK antigen expression may have disruptive apoptosis, leading to their accumulation in bone marrow and peripheral blood. And another reason is baka may potential role po si PK natin in cell adhesion and migration. However, hindi pa siya ganun ka-studied. Pero sabi dito that the PK antigen acts as a glycolipid receptor which may interact with adhesion molecules in the bone marrow microenvironment. And this could promote the migration of leukemic cells to different tissues, affecting disease progression and potentially drug resistance. Now, for your P system antibodies, take note guys that the P blood group system includes several antibodies, but their clinical significance varies. Some are naturally occurring, while others arise due to immune stimulation. And these antibodies generally react under specific conditions and can be associated with cold reacting phenomena, autoimmune disorders, or parasitic infections. Generally, your P system antibodies, they are cold reacting antibodies, meaning they react best at low temperature. Kapag sinabi natin low temperature, 4 degrees Celsius and below. And also, they react best in saline medium at low temperatures though some may react at body temperature. They could be naturally occurring or immune stimulated, and some are clinically significant, especially your auto-anti-P in paroxysmal cold hemoglobinuria. First, yung anti-P antibody natin. Your anti-P antibody is naturally occurring allo-antibody found in the sera of all PK individuals. Take note, your anti-P antibody reacts best in cold temperatures at 4 degrees Celsius and is a weak saline agglutinin, meaning it does not show up in routine blood testing. Now, your auto-anti-P, it is an IgG auto-antibody found in your PCH or paroxysmal cold hemoglobinuria And take note, your autoantype P is considered as a biphasic hemolysin. What do we mean by that, guys? In cold temperature, it binds to red blood cells, and at 37 degrees Celsius, it is complement-mediated. It causes complement-mediated hemolysis, leading to intravascular hemolysis. Laging tatandaan na si autoantype P, balimbing po siya. Pwede siyang mag-react sa cold temperature, pwede siyang mag-bind sa RBCs, or it could cause cramping or agglutination. At kapag naman nasa 37 degrees siya, it could cause complement-mediated hemolysis. And take note, si PCH natin, it is diagnosed using your Donat-Landsteiner test, which confirms the presence of the biphasic hemolysis. Now, your anti-P1 antibody, it is a common naturally occurring IgM antibody found in the sera of P2 individuals. Kapag sinabi nating P2 individuals, those who lack your P1 antigen. Take note, it is usually IgM and IgG forms are rare, and it is not associated with hemolytic disease of the fetus and newborn. Your anti-P1 can be clinically significant but may cause weak reactions in transfusion settings, and it is enhanced by cold incubation and enzymatic treatment. Now, let's discuss the association with parasitic infections. Take note that strong anti-P1 antibodies have been found in individuals with Echinococcus granulosus infection or your hydatid disease, and patients with paschaliasis or bovine liver fluke disease, and bird handlers due to cross-reactivity with pigeon and turtle dove trappings. Now, let's discuss your anti-PP1-PK antibody or your anti-TGA. Lagyan niyo po ito ng puso. Lagi pong tinatanong po ito sa mga exams po natin and even sa board exam. Originally, it is called as anti-TGA and first described in Mrs. J, a P phenotype individual with adenocarcinoma of the stomach. The T in TGA stands for tumor, highlighting its association with malignancies. And it is produced by P individuals early in life without RBC sensitization, and they are considered as naturally occurring antibodies, but they are not clinically significant. And they react best with all RBCs except those at the P phenotype. Take note, they could also react over a wide thermal range, meaning both IgM and IgG can cause severe hemolysis in transfusion settings. Now, let's discuss their clinical associations. Your anti-PP1-PK antibodies could cause spontaneous abortions in early pregnancy. That's why kapag may mga cases po tayo, baka yung case po ni Alex Gonzaga, baka may presence siya ng anti-PP1-PK since masyado siyang involved sa miscarriage or spontaneous abortions. Also, your anti-PP1-PK, it could cause severe hemolytic transfusion reactions, and it could also cause hemolytic disease of the fetus and newborn. Now, your anti-PK antibody, it is isolated from some cases of anti-PP1-PK using selective adsorption with P1 cells, and it is associated with biliary cirrhosis and autoimmune hemolytic anemia. And your allo anti-P, it is a rare antibody but highly significant in transfusion medicine. It is an IgG class anti-P, and it has been associated with habitual early abortion. And it could cause severe hemolytic reaction in transfusion cases. Huwag malilito. Kapag spontaneous abortion, si anti-PP1-PK po yun. And kapag allo anti-P naman po, habitual early abortion po. Now, let's discuss the comprehensive summary of disease associations of P blood group system antigens and antibodies. First, yung P system antigens and their role in infection. It says here, your P system antigens acts as a receptor for various pathogens, making individuals with certain blood types more susceptible to some infections. And the P system antigens act as receptors for uropathogenic E. coli. Take note, si uropathogenic E. coli po, it is a P-fimbriated uropathogenic Escherichia coli and it causes your UTI. Take note guys, ang UTI, common po siya sa mga babae since ang mga babae, maliit po yung urethra nila as compared sa mga lalaki po. Kapag may cases po ng UTI sa mga lalaki, meaning they may be sexually active po or may presence po ng STI. Now, let's continue our discussion. That the P antigen serves as a receptor for these bacteria which allow them to attach to the urinary tract epithelium and cause infection. Clinical relevance, people with strong expression of P antigen may have a higher risk of recurrent UTIs caused by P-fimbriated E. coli. Now, the P antigen and its role in viral and hematologic diseases. Take note that the P antigen could act as a receptor for human parvovirus or B19. The human parvovirus B19 causes erythema infectiosum or the fifth disease and it is commonly seen in children with slap cheek rash. Parang sinampal po yung itsura ng rashes sa mukha niya. Take note guys, huwag malilito po sa butterfly rash and sa slap cheek rash. Take note, saan makikita si butterfly rash natin? Saan makikita si butterfly rash? Assignment nyo po yan. And yan po yung i-comment nyo sa GSIP natin once you have watched this video. And the virus binds to the P antigen, allowing it to enter cells and replicate. And what's the clinical relevance of this? In healthy individuals, this causes a mild disease. However, in people with sickle cell disease or other hemolytic anemias, parvovirus B19 can cause a severe aplastic crisis, leading to bone marrow suppression and dangerous anemia. And lastly, your PK antigen and its association in bacterial toxin-mediated diseases. It says here that the PK antigen acts as a receptor for Shiga toxins or Shiga toxin-producing bacteria like yung Shigella and some E. coli strains natin. They use the PK antigen as a receptor and this leads to diseases such as your Shigella dysentery and hemolytic uremic syndrome or your HUS. And what's the relevance of this? Take note guys, si HUS natin, it is a serious condition characterized by acute kidney failure, hemolysis, and low platelet count. Assignment nyo din, i-comment nyo. You could either comment sa nakikita si butterfly or si HUS. And under HUS, i-comment nyo saan po siya common, sa bata po ba or sa matanda. Now, let's continue. Infections from E. coli 0157 or H7 strain are the most common causes of HUS in children. And PK antigen and HIV protection, interestingly, higher expression of PK antigen has been shown to reduce susceptibility to HIV infection. However po guys, huwag nyo namang i-wish na mataas si PK antigen natin. And this suggests that blood group antigens might play a role in viral resistance. Now, number 4, yung P1 antigen natin and its role in parasitic infections. As discussed earlier, si P antigen natin greatly involved sa Echinococcus infection natin. Take note, your P1 antigen is found in hydatid cyst fluid of the Echinococcus parasite which causes your hydatid disease. And clinical relevance, people infected with Echinococcus species may develop strong anti-P1 antibodies, and anti-P1 antibodies can sometimes interfere with blood typing, leading to false negative results in laboratory. Also, your anti-P1 antibody and its association with parasitic infections, ay naulit lang guys to. Ang tatandaan lang si anti-P1 antibodies natin, commonly po sila makikita sa Echinococcus infections. Si anti-PP1-PT or anti-P antibodies naman natin, it is associated with spontaneous abortions. And lastly, si auto-anti-P antibody natin, it causes PCH. Ano ulit yung test na ginagamit natin kay PCH? It is your Donat-Landsteiner test po in which dinedetect niya si biphasic hemolysis natin or biphasic hemolysin. Now, let's discuss your P blood group system phenotype. I-familiarize nyo na lang po yung sarili nyo po dito. Kung saan sila common sa whites ba or blacks. Pasadahan nyo lang po to guys. Hindi po ako kukuha sa quiz nyo po dito. However, sa exam nyo, baka pwede po akong kumuha dito. And lastly, last topic for your quiz on Friday, the I system or the I blood group system. Take note, your I blood group system consists of high prevalence antigens that follow a developmentally regulated pattern of expression. Wiener and his co-workers initially designated capital I for individuality. Lagyan niyo po ng puso yan. Recall question po ulit yan. And this emphasized variable presence among individuals, while Marsh and Jenkins later reported the presence of anti-small I antibodies. At birth, infant red blood cells are rich in small I antigen. Huwag malilito. Pwede ka pong magkaroon ng capital I and small I under this blood group. And at birth, it says here, infant red blood cells are rich in small I antigen, while the capital I antigen is almost undetectable. However, over the first 18 months of life, the small I antigen gradually decreases as the capital I antigen increases, reaching adult levels where RBCs are predominantly I positive or capital I positive with only trace amounts of your small I. And these antigens are not only present on RBCs but are also found on leukocytes, platelets, plasma, saliva, human milk, amniotic fluid, urine, and ovarian cyst fluid. And despite their dynamic expression, both capital I and small I remain high prevalence antigen, meaning they are present in nearly all individuals. Notably, there is no true capital I negative or small I negative phenotype, as all individuals express these antigens in different amounts throughout their lifetime. Take note, guys, that the I and small I antigens are high prevalence carbohydrate structures found not only on your RBCs but also on leukocytes, platelets, and various body fluids such as plasma, saliva, human milk, and urine. And unlike most blood group antigens, capital I and small I are not antithetical. Instead, they exist in the developmentally regulated reciprocal relationship. Kagaya niya po si Lewis antibodies natin na not antithetical po sila. At birth, infants have a high amount of small I antigen, which is a linear structure, and as they grow, it gradually converts into capital I antigen, a branch structure reaching adult levels by 18 months. And this transformation is facilitated by glycosyl transferases natin. And sabi natin, the glycosyl transferases, these are enzymes that modify a carbohydrate chain. However, some rare individuals never undergo this transition and retain the small I antigen into adulthood. And this condition is known as the I adult phenotype or your small I adult phenotype. And these antigens are also significant in disease associations. Autoantibodies against the capital I or your anti-capital I could cause cold agglutinin disease. And take note that your cold agglutinin disease, it is a form of autoimmune hemolytic anemia, and it is often linked to your Mycoplasma pneumoniae infections, while anti-I is associated with infectious mononucleosis. And take note, si infectious mononucleosis natin, it is caused by the Epstein-Barr virus. Huwag malilito po, guys. Kapag si anti-capital I, it causes your cold agglutinin disease, and it is a form of autoimmune hemolytic anemia, often linked to what bacteria? To your Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Si anti-small I naman, it is linked with infectious mononucleosis caused by your Epstein-Barr virus. Additionally, the reactivity of these antigens with antibodies is enhanced by proteolytic enzymes like urofecin and papain, making them more detectable in laboratory testing, but they remain resistant to chemical treatments like DTT and glycine acid EDTA. Huwag mali dito guys, di ba sa Lewis antibodies natin, na-enhance ba sila ng ficin and papain? Or sino yung blood group system na na-enhance ng enzymes natin? Si MNS po ba or Lewis? I-check nyo po yan guys. But in the case of your eye antibodies, si enzymes na ficin and papain lang po yung nagagamit natin. Na-enhance po nila your reactivity with the antigens under your eye blood group system. However, si DTT and glycine acid EDTA po natin, wala po silang nagagawa sa eye antigens natin since nagiging resistant lang po yung antigens natin to chemical treatments like your DTT and glycine acid EDTA. Ang gulo ko na guys, sorry. 12:00 na po, nantok na po ako. Next, your antibodies. Anti-eye antibody is a naturally occurring cold-reacting antibody commonly found in human serum. It typically reacts strongly with adult red blood cells but weakly or not at all with cord cells. Since the capital I antigen is poorly expressed at birth, and this anti-eye that does not cause hemolytic disease of the newborn. In laboratory testing, its reactivity is enhanced at cold temperatures and can be further strengthened using enzymes like your ficin or albumin methods. Take note, there are two types of anti-capital I. It could be benign and pathologic. The benign anti-I is frequently found in healthy individuals and it is a weak and naturally occurring and usually reacts only at cold temperatures with no clinical significance. And on the other hand, your pathologic anti-I is seen in cold agglutinin disease and is associated with autoimmune hemolysis, especially in infections like Mycoplasma pneumoniae. And in these cases, red cells could agglutinate at cold temperatures, causing symptoms like your Raynaud's phenomenon and anemia due to increased red cell destruction. Pathologic anti-I or auto-anti-I is a potent IgM called agglutinin that can react at higher temperatures, sometimes up to 30 to 30 degrees Celsius. 30 to 32 degrees Celsius. And unlike benign anti-I, this autoantibody binds to red blood cells in vivo, leading to autoagglutination, vascular occlusion or Raynaud's phenomenon, and even intravascular hemolysis. One major cause of autoanti-I production is infection with microorganisms that carry your capital I-like antigens on their surface. For example, yung Mycoplasma pneumoniae nga natin. Yung Mycoplasma pneumoniae infection natin, they could trigger strong cold agglutinins with I specificity, and this could lead to your cold agglutinin disease. Additionally, si Listeria monocytogenes naman natin, it has been reported to absorb anti-I and stimulate its production in rabbits. And this type of pathologic cold-reacting antibody is commonly associated with your cold autoimmune hemolytic anemia and cold agglutinin disease, where red cell destruction is enhanced in cooler parts of the body such as the extremities. Pathogenic autoanti-I is strongly associated with cold agglutinin syndrome or your CAS. In cold environments, these antibodies bind to red blood cells leading to autoagglutination and vascular occlusion in the peripheral circulation. And this results in acrocyanosis. And what do we mean by acrocyanosis? Take note guys, there will be a bluish discoloration of extremities. And in addition to this, magkakaroon din ng hemolytic anemia as red blood cells get destroyed when they return to warmer parts of the body. Your anti-IT, where T stands for transition, is naturally occurring antibody found in Melanesians, coastal Papua New Guinea residents, Yayoma, and Venezuela populations. Unlike anti-capital I or anti-small I, your anti-IT targets cells in a transitional phase between your capital I and small I antigen expression. While commonly seen as a benign antibody, IgM and IgG forms of your anti-IT have been linked to warm autoimmune hemolytic anemia, especially in Hodgkin lymphoma patients. Now, your anti-I, unlike capital anti-I, it is not commonly found in healthy individuals and react best at cold temperatures. And kapag sinabing cold temperatures, 4 degrees Celsius po yung pinag-uusapan natin dito. And most auto-anti-I antibodies are IgM, but IgG forms have been documented and are associated with hemolytic disease of the newborn. Strong anti-small I reactions have been seen in patients with infectious mononucleosis, alcoholic cirrhosis, myeloid leukemia, and reticulosis, making it a useful diagnostic clue in these conditions. Take note guys, kapag nag-quiz kayo or exam later on, huwag malilito sa writing ng antibodies po natin under the I blood group system. Lagi wag malilito pag anti-capital I or anti-small I. Lagi niyong titignan yung correlations po nila. And lastly, your I and small I antigens reactivity. And take note guys, the antigens under this blood group system show distinct reactivity patterns based on the developmental stages of red blood cells. Adult RBCs strongly react with anti-capital I, while their reactivity with anti-small I and anti-IT is weak or negative. Cold RBCs, which are rich in small I antigen, show strong reactivity with anti-small I and anti-IT, but little to no reaction with your anti-capital I. Meanwhile, yung adult small I RBCs naman natin, which are found in rare cases, they strongly react with anti-small I, but weakly or not at all with your anti-capital I and anti-IT. And in terms of disease associations, your anti-capital I is linked to cold agglutinin disease and Mycoplasma pneumoniae infections. While si anti-small I naman, it is associated with infectious mononucleosis. Increased I antigen expression is seen in conditions with shortened marrow maturation time or dyserythropoiesis such as acute leukemia, hypoplastic anemia, and megaloblastic anemia. Pwede din nating ipasok dito si sideroblastic anemia natin, thalassemia, sickle cell disease, your PNH, and chronic hemolytic anemia. And take note guys, yung tandaan nyo tong condition na to, si chronic dyserythropoietic anemia type 2 or HEMPAS po natin. And tong condition na to, it exhibits markedly high small I antigen activity. Additionally, in Asians, the rare small I adult phenotype has been associated with congenital cataracts, suggesting a potential developmental link between RBC antigen expression and eye formation. And that's the end of our discussion. Ay, ito pala yung disease association niya. Picturean nyo lang na lang po guys itong last blood group system na na-discuss po. Sa Friday, magkakaroon po tayo ng group quiz po. And yung sa group quiz nyo po, depende po yan sa lab group ninyo. Kaya mag-usap-usap na kayong magkakagrupo sa lab kung saan kayo mag-focus na topic para mas mabilis or mas madalian po yung trabaho ninyo. And sa Friday, ang dadalhin po natin, magdala po kayo ng small po na whiteboard and marker po. Together with eraser, per group po yan. Per group. And sa isang section ko, si LCJ, i-group po kayo. Magsisend po ako ng groupings ninyo later on. And that's the end of our discussion, guys. Good luck. And start reviewing for your midterm exams na wag lang po kayong mag-start mag-review 1 night before your exam or 2 nights before your exam. Good night, guys.